Are live. Okay, so today we're going to do the quadratic formula, but it is standard. It is a Common Core standard algebra, rational equations 1, 4b. Talks about quadratics. We're going to solve quadratic equations in one variable by the quadratic equation. It's going to squeeze it in there, okay? So it says we're going to solve quadratic equations in one variable by the quadratic equation. Okay, you know what? I am recording, Becca and Michaela. I am recording, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. So first of all, to use the quadratic formula, you see the b's, b squared, a's and c's, right? So we look at this, and a is 1, b is negative 8, and c is 10. So let's write that down. A is 1, b is negative 8, and c is 10. Okay. All we have to do is plug these numbers into the formula. That's it. And then simplify it. So all we're going to do is I'm going to go negative b. So I'm going to use the formula. I'm going to go negative, let's see, b is negative 8. So negative 8 plus or minus, because it says plus or minus, big square root. B squared, well, b is negative 8, so I'm going to go negative 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 10 all over 2 times 1. Okay, all I did was I plugged my negative 8 in for b, and I plugged my 1 in for a's, and I plugged my 10 in for c, because a is 1, b is negative 8, and c is 10. That's all I do. A, b, c, these numbers 1, negative 8, and 10 are a, b, and c. I take those numbers, I put them where they belong. That's all I've done. Now, the only hard part about the quadratic formula is just the fact that it just takes a little bit of work to simplify, okay? So double negative, negative, negative makes it positive 8. Plus or minus square root. Now, negative 8 squared is a positive number. Whenever you square negative 8 times negative, this is always a positive number. Negative 8 squared is 64 minus 40 all over 2. 2 times 1. So all I'm going to do now is just keep simplifying, right? I'm going to keep going. 64 minus 40 is a 24. So I'm going to go 8 plus or minus the square root of 24 over 2. Alright, now what I have is the square root of 24. And I remember with square roots I can reduce that. So on a little side note over here, square root of 24 is the same thing as square root of 4, square root of 6, right? Which is 2 square roots of 6. So I'm going to, instead of writing square root of 24, I'm just going to write in its place 2 square roots of 6. So I just reduced the 24. So I'm going to go, all right, 8 plus or minus 2 square roots of 6 over 2. All right, now, remember there's got to be two answers. There are two answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my two answers, okay? So my two answers are going to be like this. Shoot this over here. Okay, my two answers. I'm going to have an 8 plus 2 square roots of 6 over 2. And I'll have an 8 minus 2 square roots of 6 over 2. So I just did the plus minus with 8 plus 2 square roots of 6 and 8 minus. That's how I'm going to get my two answers, okay? What I notice is that I could reduce this to 4 plus 1 square root of 6. There's one answer. And I could reduce it to 4 minus 1 square root of 6. And there's my second answer. Or, I like it like this. 4 plus or minus the square root of 6. There's my both answers together, right? Now, if I really wanted to know what it was, I would just use a calculator, okay? If I needed the decimal form, but I like this answer because this is a nice answer in terms of squares, okay? But if I really wanted to find out what is the actual answer, I could go, okay, well, what is 4 plus the square root of 6? Okay, it's about a 6.5 or approximately equal to a 6.45. And this one I could use my calculator. I go, okay, what is it? 4 minus the square root of 6, right? And I get about a 1.55, approximately 1.55. Now, when do I use one answer versus the other? If I'm graphing it and I need an actual point, I would use my calculator, okay? If I'm graphing it, I actually need a point to graph, I would actually use my calculator, okay? Or if it's a story problem and I wanted to know like when it hit the ground, you know, I would want a real answer, okay? An actual answer, okay? Mathematically, though, we like this answer better because this is the exact answer, right? Square root of 6 is a square root of 6. These are just decimal approximations, okay? So what do I use this? Story problem, or if I need to graph it, okay? This is the answer mathematicians like. And I'm a mathematician, so this is the answer I like, okay? Okay, example 2. Same stuff, all right? So what we're going to do is use the quadratic formula. Again, and I wanted to do example 2 because you got a number for A, all right? So slide it back up. Quadratic formula is right here on the board, so we can look at it as I go through, okay? So first of all, let's list A, B, and C. A is 3, B is 5, and C is 1, okay? So we're just going to plug it in the formula, okay? Negative B. So we're going to go negative 5 plus or minus. Just plugging it into the formula right here. Plus or minus square root B squared, which is a 5 squared, minus a 4 times A times C. I extend my square root, okay? All over. When you do it all over, do it all over. Big long division. See the big long division? All over 2A, which is 2 times 3, okay? All right. So let's simplify it. Put the numbers where they belong. So it's going to be negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 12 all over 6, okay? Which is negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 13 all over 6. Now you cannot simplify 13, can't you? 13 is just 13. So we could say, done, answer. Answer. Unless we wanted a decimal answer, okay? And if we wanted a decimal answer, we would just do this. Watch it on the calculator. I would just go negative 5 plus the square root of 13. I'd get my answer and divide it by 6. So one decimal answer is about a negative 0.23, okay? If I needed it. The other decimal answer would be a negative 5, subtract square root of 13, get my answer, divide it by 6. So there's my two answers. I'd have a negative 0.23 and a negative 1.4. If I were graphing it, that's where I would cross the x-axis, okay? Or if it's a story problem. Question 1. Right. So the only time I'm going to use a calculator, I'm only going to use it in 2 times. If I have to graph points, and I need to, because I'm not going to be able to graph that as a point, right? So I'll use the calculator if I'm going to graph points, or the other time is if it's a story problem, right? I want to, okay, when does the ball hit the ground, right? And I need an answer, because that's not going to give me a very good answer, okay? Does that make sense to you guys? Other than that, this is pretty easy, isn't it? This is pretty easy. It's just tedious. Okay, turn the page. Let's look at the next one, okay? All right. Example 3. Find the roots. Well, what we have talked about in here is that roots and zeros are kind of the same thing. Roots and zeros are the same thing. So let's set it equal to 0. 2x squared minus a 1x minus 7. Okay? And if it doesn't factor, which this one doesn't. If it factored, boy, I would factor it, get the answer, boom, I'd be done. Okay, I wouldn't do all this mess. I honestly would factor it, get the answer, done with the day, right? I like to factor because it's fast. Okay? This is a little tedious. So if it doesn't factor, let's just use the quadratic formula. So minus b, right? Here's our formula. Minus b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So let's list. A is 2, B is -1, C is -7. Okay? So let's go through it. Negative B is a negative, -1, plus or minus the square root. B squared, which is a -1 squared, minus a 4, times A, which is a 2, 4AC is -7, all over 2 times A, which is 2 times 2. Okay? So just plug the numbers in where they belong. Okay, just plug the numbers in where they belong. Okay, negative, negative, double negative makes a +1, plus or minus the square root. -1 squared is a positive. Negative times negative is a +1, plus, I'm going to get the plus because I get the negative, plus 56, because I get an 8 times 7, all over 4. Or 1 plus or minus the square root of 57 over 4. And again, Juan, this is a great example. 57 doesn't break down, does it? So we're done. So that's it. That's the answer. Now, again, if you needed the decimal equivalent, okay? If you needed the decimal equivalent, I could go parentheses 1 plus square root of 57 divided by 4, and one answer would be about a 2.13. Or the other answer would be 1 subtract square root of 57 divided by 4, and there's my other answer, okay? I only need a decimal answer if we're going to graph it or do a story problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Other than that, this is a good answer. Okay, now finally, last one, okay? So, water's thrown from a helicopter from a height of 500 feet. The path modeled by the equation is y equals h of t equals -16t squared minus 2t plus 500. Okay, so let me draw a picture, okay? So you guys have all seen, I mean, we live in fire country. We've all seen it happen, right? So as the helicopter is moving along, I'll draw a little picture of my helicopter here. Here's my helicopter. Let's see if I can do a halfway decent job of my helicopter. How's that, huh? And as he's moving along, if he's moving along this way, the water falls like this. Doesn't that make sense? If he's moving this way, the water falls like that. So it does fall in a parabola, okay? So what we want to know is this. How long does it take to hit the ground? So, easy question. It's not a trick question, Garrett. When it hits the ground, what's the height? 0, right? Right, so we set it equal to 0. Okay, so we go, okay, 0 equals -16t squared minus 2t plus 500. If it would factor, I would factor, boom, boom, I'd have the answer. It doesn't factor. It doesn't factor. So let's use the quadratic formula. And this time I'm actually going to get a decimal answer because I need an answer, right? So A is -16, B is -2, C is 500, okay? All right? Let's just use the formula. -b, -2, plus or minus big square root, b squared, which is a -2 squared, minus 4 times a, which is a -16, times c, which is a 500, all over 2 times a, which is -16. So just plug the numbers in, okay? I'm going to get two answers. One answer is going to be positive, and the other answer is going to be negative. I'm going to get two answers. I'm going to throw away the negative answer because we're looking for time. I'm going to throw away the negative answer because we're looking for time. You can't have negative time unless you're Marty McFly, right? So, since Marty McFly is not here. Okay, there you go. So Will's working on it. There you go. So +2, right? You get a +2, double negative, plus or minus, square root, 4 plus, and I'm going to have to use a calculator. I think it's 32,000. I think 4 times 16 times 500, 32,000. All over -32, okay? That's going to be 2 plus or minus the square root of 32,000 4, right, over negative 32. Now, this is the time I need to use my calculator because I need an answer. This is not a very good answer. So I'm going to use my calculator. What is the square root of 32,004? I don't know. Let's check it out. Yeah, square root of 32,004, and I get an answer about 179. Close. We're going to say 179, okay? So on my calculator, I just did it.
Wait, can you move that?
Yeah, I will, real quick. And so I'm going to round it. I mean, for practical purposes, I'm going to round it. You guys okay with that? So I'm going to have two answers. Let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to have 2 plus 179 over negative 16. And I'm going to have 2 minus 179 over negative 16. I got the plus or minus, right? So I got the 2 plus that and the 2 minus that, okay? So I'm just going to use my calculator and get two answers. This one's going to be negative, you're going to see. I'm going to throw that one away. This will be positive because you get the negative divided by the negative. Will?
Isn't it negative 32, not English?
Oh my goodness, thank you, Will. Yes, there's a mistake. I have to admit it on camera too, huh? Alright. Thank you, Will. Negative 32, negative 32, yeah. Okay, so, in my calculator, let's go. Can you see my calculator? Let's just go the first one. Let's go 2 plus 179 divided by negative 32, and I get an answer of negative 5.6. Throw it out. That's negative time. Throw it out. That's negative time. We don't do negative time. Well, I don't know. Divided by negative 32, and I get about a 5.5. So that's time. So it's going to take 5.5 seconds for the firefighter to get the heck out of there, right? You better start running. The water's coming. Yeah, one question. Let's do the nearest tenth. Okay. That seems fair, right? 5.5 seconds. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Here's our homework. You guys can take